Things are not looking good on the Mexican border. In fact, the United States is saying we are probably about to get a massive influx of immigrants trying to cross into America that we need help, and a lot of help. So who are you going to call? The active duty military, or active duty DOD, has been summoned / requested to send 1,500 troops on the U.S.-Mexican border to help and stop this influx of migrants who are about to be trying to come into America. So what exactly is going on? Why are all these migrants all of a sudden trying to come into the United States? And why are we deploying active duty troops on the border? Like, what is their actual job and what can they even do? Well, in this video, we are going to go over all of this. So please stick with me. My name is T-SPLY. Let's get to the video. Now, first things first, here's the actual request to summon DOD active duty members.
At the request of the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Austin approved a temporary Department of Defense increase of an additional 1,500 military personnel to supplement U.S. Customs and Border Protection efforts on the U.S. southwest border. For 90 days, these 1,500 military personnel, who will be sourced from the active duty component, will fill critical capability gaps such as ground-based detection and monitoring, data entry, and warehouse support until CPB can address these needs through contracted support.
And it's not that Homeland Security can't do their job, it's just that the Mexican-US border is literally massive and the terrain is ridiculous and logistics are very difficult. But we'll get more into that. Again, stick with me. We need to figure out, why are all of these migrants all of a sudden coming into the United States? What the heck is going on with that? Well, we have something called Title 42, and Title 42 is ending.
The policy started during the Trump administration at the start of the pandemic. It gives immigration officials the authority to turn away migrants at the border over public health concerns like the spread of COVID-19. When DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas toured the Mexican border in McAllen this week, Border Patrol officers said they've already seen pre-pandemic levels of traffic at their post. The latest federal numbers show migrant arrests are at a 22-year high.
So Title 42 essentially gave way more power to Border Patrol and Homeland Security to turn away everybody they want to turn away and who they deemed either like sick or had some sort of pandemic issues. They could just turn them away. And because of this, we actually had less migrants trying to come into the country because they knew how serious and how strict things were. Like, there was no chance of getting into the country at the time. But now that Title 42 is ending and there's going to be less restrictions in the United States, well, migrants are watching and they know the news. They're not dumb. This means they can try coming into the country and try finding the gaps of the border and coming in illegally. Now, as far as what are active duty members doing on the border, well, it's very hit or miss. Usually what goes on is they put you in a random remote area in your vehicle and you're told just to sit there and to watch what's going on. And if you fall asleep, you'll get in trouble. You'll usually end up there with like a partner or a battle buddy, but that's all you're allowed to do. You are there to watch the area, and if anything happens, you call it in. That's it. You can't do anything else. You cannot touch the migrant. You're not legally allowed to even do that. Unless it's under self-defense, but for the most part, migrants are just trying to avoid you anyway. So the biggest complaint from soldiers and military members who are on the border is that, why are we even here if we're not really allowed to help? We are quite literally some of the most trained military members in the world, and if you send us over to Afghanistan, you send us over to Iraq, wherever, we're allowed to do detaining operations. We're allowed to search people if we need to search them. We're allowed to set up like little bases or areas to where we can defend the area. But why on the border do things change? We did all this training for nothing and we're just sitting there. And I'm not being critical on the Army. It's not the Army's fault. It's the government who's telling them they can't do that. In fact, my unit was one of the first units to deploy to the border, and all of my former soldiers all told me the same thing. We are not allowed to do anything. We are just supposed to sit here and watch. We don't make any arrests. We don't do any paperwork. We just observe and tell Department of Homeland Security what is going on, or we tell Border Patrol, hey, we see somebody, come and get them. And we just sit in our truck and wait. Now, Department of Homeland Security has a very difficult task in trying to stop all of these migrants from coming into the country, because not only do they have to work in these pockets of really rough terrain on the border, but they're also working in legal access points, like where U.S. citizens can go into Mexico, Mexicans can come into the country, or vice versa. These are like legal ports of entry. You need to understand that these legal ports of entry are about to have an influx of people coming in and out, legally and illegally, because this whole pandemic thing is over. No more Title 42. So these agents are not going to be able to be in these pockets where illegal immigrants try to come in. Whether that's through border towns over a fence or through open parts of the border where it's just all desert, Border Patrol will not be able to cover everything. And let's not also forget about state troopers or local law agencies who are also on the border mission trying to figure out what to do with all of these migrants coming into the country. Now, I always try to be very transparent when it comes to videos like this, and for some reason on the Texas-Mexican border, things are not looking good. There's been multiple investigations, there's been a lot of issues with the soldiers on the border, and many people can't crack down what's going on. In fact, the Army Times and other independent watchdog groups have been doing investigations on the border mission in Texas, and here's what the report and findings are. Number 1, when troops weren't on duty, most were at hotels and remote locations. Alcohol and drug abuse became so widespread that senior leaders issued breathalyzers and instituted alcohol restrictions that tightened as the misconduct incidents piled up. Because remember, these are National Guard troops who are quite literally on their home soil. A lot of them can just drive home if they wanted to, or family members could visit them, but that was not allowed. The biggest argument was that these National Guard soldiers were treated like they're all the way in Syria when they're just in Texas. They're in their home state. And so obviously they're going to have a little bit of partying and fun when they're done with their border mission. We've had a lot of SA incidents. We've had troops at the border had more than 3 times as many car accidents over the past year. At least 500 incidents totaling $630,000 in damages. And again, this is me not hating on the Army. I've always been very supportive of the Army and the troops who are fighting every day to do their thing. But for some reason on the Texas-Mexican border, it's been a major black eye and nobody can seem to figure out what is going wrong. Is it the leadership? Is it the bad training? Is it just how annoying this mission is that you're just standing in the desert? But nonetheless, this is a crucial mission and the United States has to fill the gap somehow. So that is what the U.S. military, more specifically U.S. Army, U.S. Marines, that is their job. That is what they're doing, and that is what's going on. 1,500 troops are going to be sent to the border to help fill the gaps, help the Department of Homeland Security, because apparently we are about to get an influx of migrants trying to come into the United States. Anyway, that's the video. Leave your comments and opinions down below. My name is T-SPLY, and we'll see you later.